Hey everyone, welcome to the Workbench. I'm Jack, and I'm going to be doing something a little bit different today, something that I have not done before, but we're going to be talking about a few new model railroad cars that have come out recently and that I think should be making a little bit more of a splash than they already have. So we're going to be talking about all the ins and outs of these new freight cars from prairieshadows.com, and I do want to go ahead and preface this. I have not taken any money from Prairie Shadows, not on their payroll. This is going to be entirely my own opinion, and all the positives and negatives are just as I see them. Also, it's going to be a blind unboxing here. We're going to be talking about some of the details of these freight cars as I find them as they come out of these packages. Haven't opened these boxes yet, so we'll be kind of doing a little bit of a live reaction for these as well. So let's go ahead and get into it. Prairie Shadows is what I like to call one of the Canadian boutique model makers. Now, we have our big companies, like we have Scale Trains, we have Athearn, we have Walthers, some of the big mainstays in the hobby, but there's a few small startups that have come up recently, really within the last decade. 3 of them in Canada. There's Otter Valley Railroad, Aurora Miniatures, and now Prairie Shadows, that are what I call them boutiques because they're kind of small outfits that seem to be more catered directly towards finding the gaps that the larger model making companies have left with their catalogs. And they've done some really interesting stuff lately. It's stuff that has not been done before in plastic, at least as far as I'm aware. Of course, there could be plenty of gaps in my knowledge, but of course, this is going off of what I know off the top of my head. So we're going to be starting today with one of these Pressure Differential 5,000 cubic foot covered hoppers. This is one of the newest releases coming in from Prairie Shadows. Go ahead and get my light up here. And this is a covered hopper that deals in dry bulk goods that are kind of more of a powdery nature. These are going to be things that would not unload by gravity very cleanly, like you know how grain would all flow down a chute with no problem. This is going to be hauling things that tend to cake up and need a little bit of an extra boost to get out of the hopper and actually into whatever facility they're taking their products into. Stuff like some cement would go in these, flour, any kind of that really powdery sort of consistency of product would be coming out of these. There's been several other models, like Atlas has a I believe it's the 3230. It's one of the shorter versions of these. They've also, I know BLMA made a longer version, one of the Trinities, but these are a bit of an earlier model that came out around the 80s. These were originally built in the 1980s by North American Railcar, and then Trinity and Thrall, other manufacturers that are still on the scene. North American Railcar is no longer with us, took over the designs and started producing these cars up through the late 80s into the early 90s. And there's still quite a few of them rolling around. This one that I'm looking at here represents one of the repainted versions of these cars that has been acquired by First Union Rail, FURX, and it's really just already looking pretty great coming out of this packaging. Really pretty excited to be getting this out. I've been waiting on these to come out for quite a few months. There's a little package of small detail parts here that I'm not entirely sure what those are just yet. Maybe is there an instruction sheet in here? No, there's not. So I guess we'll be figuring out where those go to, or maybe if I don't, then maybe let me know in the comments and let me know what I'm missing. So right out of the box, we've got really beautiful, beautiful detailing right here, and it looks like one of my favorite things that I've noticed with Prairie Shadows. I have gotten a couple of their covered hoppers before from previous runs of different cars. I really like the way they do their wheels, the profiling on those. Every manufacturer has their own way of doing wheels, and the profile on the front end of those, it's kind of a characteristic trademark of many model train manufacturers. They all look a little bit different. These have a really nice kind of smooth, round shape to them. They taper nicely to the lip or the rim of the wheel, and I just really appreciate that. I think that looks really good, really prototypically accurate. Some of them look a little chunkier, like the wheel rims will be a little bit thicker, especially I know on Walther's cars. I'm not as big of a fan of those, but these look really good. They do not have spinning bearing caps, which some folks will definitely not appreciate, but others, I know there's a few modelers in the hobby that don't like the spinning bearing caps that have been added onto different cars. I actually have a shot of one of the prototypes. From Railroad Picture Archives, we have one of the actual prototypes. I believe, yeah, this is the exact number of this car. You can see that the details are pretty much all there. It's got the correct warning labels, the correct placement of all the safety striping, the font's correct, and looks to be the right size and the right place. Looks like the underpiping, I don't know for sure. It's pretty hard to tell from this photograph. I know that some of these have more of that galvanized metal look on some of these pipes that run underneath the car, the pressure pipes that they use to actually fill the car with air and get the contents to eject out through the conical hatches here on the bottom. It looks like that. Like on this model, it's painted just in the raw plastic color. It's the same color as the car body itself, and sometimes I know the Atlas models have more of that galvanized look. I think that's probably what's on the prototype, so that might be something that needs to be painted, but could be talking out of my rear end on that one. There's some really cool detailing on those hatches too. Like if you look real close, you can see all of the angle cocks here are all detailed. The hatches just have lots and lots of all the rivet detail underneath here. The underbody detailing is just really, really awesome. It's got the cut levers on the ends, the Katy coupler, cut levers on the ends, the Katy couplers that come with these. That's awesome, by the way. A lot of manufacturers have their own proprietary couplers, but nothing works better than a good old-fashioned KD, and those are also the scale knuckle variety, which also is that's what I like to use. So those are, it's good that I don't have to do a coupler swap on these cars whenever I first get them in. Also the roof walks, the roof detailing is great. We've got the see-through tread on the walkways. Now this does look just a little bit chunkier than some other models. I do believe that does look like it's etched metal. I believe that they may have previously used I believe that these were on previous runs. They may have molded these in plastic instead of using the etched metal. Looks like these are etched metal. These are really, really high quality cars. And for the price point, yes, they really well should be, considering that they are $62.99. Of course, if you buy 4 or more from Prairie Shadows directly, they give you a 10% discount. So that did tempt me to go ahead and get that quantity discount on these. Right now, just looking at this for the first time, I don't really have any major complaints. As a non-rolling stock expert, I consider myself at least, I know just enough about all these different varieties of rolling stock to be dangerous, but I could not pick out, at least not at first glance, any glaring inaccuracies that they may have gone to. Really, with these the quote-unquote boutique model makers, I do expect them to be spend a little bit more time and really get that high fidelity, that attention to detail that some of the larger manufacturers might not get. In this day and age, paying with that 10% discount off of these cars, it makes them about $57 each. So that's a little under I've paid more for freight cars before, so I don't think that that's really the worst. They're definitely not committing the worst sin that I've ever seen from any manufacturer. So we'll set that over here and get on to our next one. This next model is a Trenton Works 5250. This model has been done in a previous run. This is from their second run of these covered hoppers. And I also I don't think I mentioned anything about it here, but the packaging. I do really appreciate the boxes that they put these cars in. They have a really unique look to them. They also I don't think anybody's done like that kind of purple look that these boxes have. So they have that really nice, unique flavor to them. But you probably won't be finding these in any just brick and mortar hobby stores. At least I've never seen them carried by any dealers at any train shows. These kind of seem to be a thing that you have to order on your own. So next up, we're going to be talking about the Trenton Works 5250. This is an NKLX patched out version that represents where one of these cars might be in the modern day. So while I'm getting this out of the box, I'll tell you a little bit about the history of them, at least from, this is kind of paraphrasing the information that's already on the website. And also, I did not ever figure out where those, what those detail parts go to that come in the little bag in the pressure differential car. So we will hopefully figure that out at some point. This one does not have any little pieces of plastic of unknown destination, and also the clamshells that they use on these, they are the kind that you kind of have to pop apart. Not as big of a fan of that specifically. I think that it can lead to accidents if you're not being careful, because you have to get that kind of pop to get the packaging open. But that's nitpicking. That's a really, really small complaint that I have, and it's not even about the actual car itself. So here we are. Little nugget of history for you. These were built in the middle 1990s by Trenton Works, that I believe is in Nova Scotia, and they were built for the Canadian railroads to fill out the rosters on some of their grain trains that they operate along the Canadian National, Canadian Pacific systems. And they're wound up making quite a few of them, and then they were in grain service in Canada for a number of years. The build years were listed as 1996 to 1997, I believe. And so these were in service to the late 90s, early 2000s. Then they started getting sold off to third-party owners. This one wound up in NKLX's hands. I know that FURX has quite a few. Several other owners. You'll just see them kind of randomly mixed in throughout mixed freight trains, or in other grain trains. Like I've seen Union Pacific will have some of these on their grain trains from time to time. These freight cars are really, they're a unique shape that you'll find in different grain trains that roll across the prairies nowadays. And from what I've seen, most of these NKLX ones do tend to stay up north, more around like the Wisconsin area, more in the like Twin Cities region, not so much down here on the Southern Plains or the Central Plains as much, but you do wind up seeing a few of these here from time to time. And wow, these are really nice free-rolling cars again. I do notice now, looking at the end cages, now this is where we get the detail to be maybe just a little bit chunkier and lower resolution. I'll zoom in on this. See the separately applied wires here. Now this right here on the very end, that looks pretty good to me. These ladders here, 1, 2, 3, those are nice and pretty nice and skinny. They do a pretty good job, but on the outside edge, these are just a little bit thicker. These are molded plastic instead of a separately applied wire detail part. So that is a little bit of a knock against these for me, because those of course are definitely not how the actual prototype looks. They are a little bit more resilient to damage from handling, and they don't look bad per se. They are still pretty finely molded plastic, but yeah, they are a little bit thicker than the others. That's something that's left over from the previous run of these, and I guess it does make sense. These are a slightly lower cost car than the Pressure Differential that we just reviewed. In fact, these run about $9 cheaper from Prairie Shadows. These run for $53.99, which is, again, not terrible prices for something that's made by a pretty small company that's probably not making nearly as many of these as many other companies would. So pretty good detail here. The roping eyes here are pretty good. Oop. All right, so here's the actual prototype car. It's or at least a similar number. This is number 201-100, the actual prototype. So I guess the location of the safety striping may vary somewhat, but really kind of captures the essence of the car there. It's got that little Canadian flag symbol in the middle, the patched out former CN logo on the right-hand side, and the NKLX patched out data on the left. That all looks to be pretty much in the right spot. These are pretty good-looking cars, all things considered. They don't weather too terribly heavy, and they pick up a little graffiti, so it'll be a nice project for the weathering bench eventually. The logos there have been pretty faithfully represented. The little, is that a, what is that? Oh, it's an, huh. Maybe there's a little bit of a history on that. It's a kangaroo holding a Canadian flag, and it says Australia below. Yeah, okay, interesting. That's a kangaroo holding a Canadian flag, and it says Australia underneath in bold lettering. That is an interesting little detail. I'd need to look up exactly what that led to that. The data is nicely printed in good resolution. There's a little bit of a glossy sheen to some of the especially to the patching from the paint that they used on it, and also noticing the RFID tag that's been modeled here as well. Let's get that into focus. Yeah, that's a little better. Yeah, this RFID tag that's right here, that's also something that you might gloss over whenever you're looking at some of these modern covered hoppers. So that's pretty cool that they remembered to mold that in. The hatches look pretty good. I don't have a photo reference to compare on those, but they do look to be pretty well modeled. The support on the underside here for the end, the crossover on the end, that also is part of the mold that's molded in. It looks to be prototype correct. These stiffeners here on the ends, the crossover platform is there. Again, Katy couplers. Also, I really like the air hose detailing, the brake lines, how they cross over like that between these two bays. That's a pretty cool little detail as well. The outlet gates, they don't look to have a ton of, looks like the detail is pretty basic on those. They don't see a lot of riveting or any kind of, but it's pretty standard. They use a flathead. They also use a flathead screw to attach the trucks, so that is also, I'm not a fan of flatheads myself, so I see I'm grasping at straws here to try and find ways to criticize these cars, because they are really, really nice, and I am really quite pleased with what I'm seeing of them so far. So that's our Trenton Works hopper. Again, another really fantastic job from the guys at Prairie Shadows. And I now will switch gears over towards something a little bit different. Our final car today is a boxcar, an LRS GATX Trinity 50-foot high cube. These are pretty basic cars that you'll see running around, and I do believe that these have been modeled, or at least something very similar has been modeled by other outfits. Like Aurora Miniatures has their own version of these boxcars. Really, yeah, a 50-foot boxcar in the modern era is it's just extremely commonplace. So these are not as unique of a modeling item as those previous two versions of covered hoppers, but also I will admit I'm a little bit less knowledgeable on the world of boxcars. I do tend to spend my modeling time a little more focused on covered hoppers as opposed to boxcars. So off the bat, also pretty well detailed little car here, and it looks like we're getting pretty much all of those graphics on the door are just about where they should be. This is just one number. This prototype shot is just one number off from the actual car that we're looking at here on the bench today. Really quite impressed with these. Looks like all of the safety striping is in order. These cars are pretty modern. I believe the LRS GATX cars have been pretty recent additions to our railroads. Let's see if I can find the build date on here. Yeah, built in 6 of 2020. Yeah, so these are pretty brand spanking new. As of this recording, these are 6 years old in the prototype world. So these have not really accumulated a lot of miles on them like some of our other covered hoppers here have. Those are both from 80s and 90s era when they were first built. This is pretty brand spanking new, and it represents a very modern, contemporary boxcar. Really clear, crystal clear printing on all of the labeling on the door. It looks to all be in the correct positions per the prototype shots. There are a couple of labels that I do see missing. Of course, we are one car off, so they could have been working from a different reference photo. Looks like there are a couple of labels that would have been in these places. There are some square white labels that you can see there that don't appear to be in place on the actual model itself. So that's not a deal breaker, of course. It's just one small detail. And again, I'm really trying to find ways to criticize these cars because there's not a lot that I see wrong with them. And maybe I'm just too easy to please, but these are looking pretty awesome. The underbody detailing, the waffle structure here on the underside. Let me get my pointer so you're not looking at my big old chunky hand there in the shot. Yeah, the brake rigging just has a lot of really cool details, like all the piping. Of course, I can't tell you all of the exact ways that these brake structures actually exist on the undersides of these cars, but those sure do look pretty, those do look pretty prototype accurate to me. All the different piping and pistons and everything that keeps the brakes running. So these end details are also really well done here. They've got the high visibility, the yellow painted cut lever here with see-through details on the crossover platform. The wire grab here for the crossover platform. The small step ladders on the ends. This ladder here, just wow, these are really well done. They've also included the blue bearing caps on these cars as well, and those again not rotating, so that's one detail that you might find a little bit you might find that detail to be a little bit wanting on these, but yeah, otherwise that's a beautiful car if you ask me. So that about wraps up everything I've got to say about these cars. So far I have very little to complain about. I think that these are another really fantastic run out of Prairie Shadows. They're doing some really fantastic work. One of their next models up in line is a Thrall 5150. That's another covered hopper that has been really sorely lacking in my fleet that I've been modeling. So for a prototype modeler like me, somebody who really does want that fidelity to the detail and like having all the unique variations of the cars that we see in the real world, I think these are really great additions. If you haven't heard of them, if you haven't picked them up, I would recommend looking into doing so because these are quite awesome, and at least currently as of this video they still have some of their road numbers in stock. I am doing a little bit of free advertising for them, but hey, I do like these cars a lot. I think that they are really well done and that you would definitely be well served to at least pick up a couple of them and try them out for yourself. So that's going to be it for this one. Thanks for joining me here at the workbench. I'll see you next time.